Ahoj, já jsem Pavel Sopera.
A já jsem Lukáš a tohle je Growcast, podcastový seriál akcelerátoru Meant to Grow, jehož cílem je pomoci vám, zakladatelům technologických startupů, rychle růst a expandovat.
V Growcastu se věnujeme praktickým radám a zkušenostem founderů a expertů na témata, která rychle rostoucí firmy opravdu trápí. Prostě žádné příběhy, ale praxe.
Zdravíme vás z podcastového studia Magenta Experience Center a jdeme na to. Demand generation is the alpha and the omega of any successful business, and it also happens to be an area with which most founders struggle the most. And today in the studio we have founders of two successful businesses that seem to have hit the right notes when it comes to successfully generating, nurturing, and converting leads. Welcome, Matt. Welcome, Vlastimil.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello guys, for me as well. Matt, I will start with you and shortly to introduce you and give you the first question. Matt is a co-founder and CEO of Mews, definitely one of the success stories of Czech startups, although now we can call it definitely a global company already. Mews is in a hospitality segment, providing a complex system for hotels and hotel chains and other small verticals in this hospitality segment. The company was started in 2012 and it grew continuously until today. Currently, you have 650 people around the world. Still, your main office is in Prague, although you have offices all around the world in Amsterdam, New York, London, and so on. And you also went through several rounds of financing, the last one in 2019, when you raised $33 million, if I'm not mistaken. And most importantly, you are catering to more than 3,000 clients already.
Correct.
So apparently you did something correctly.
I hope so.
And you are growing fast over these years. So could we maybe begin with a sort of general question? How did your methods and tools and the approach change over these years? Because everybody has to start somehow. So at the beginning you had 0 clients, or let's say first 50 clients, and then you had 500, and now you have 3,000. So could you tell us a little bit your journey in terms of the lead generation and sales?
Yeah, for sure. So I come from a sales background. I used to work at Hilton, where I was working in a sales background. So I thought, I can do this again. And when you build your own product and you have to go and sell it to the first customers, you literally grab your laptop and you just walk into hotel lobbies and try and pitch it to anyone who wants to listen. And that didn't go particularly well. So you had to go through your friends' network almost to figure out leads that were kind of warm leads versus these cold introductions, which just don't work because no one's used your product before. So in the early days, it was really Richard and myself, the founder, and myself walking around Prague, going into hotel lobbies and just trying to pitch it, and that just didn't work. And then at some point, about 3 years in, we got a sales director into the business, someone who just only did that, because we did everything, right? We did support, implementations, like you just distracted constantly. So we got Greg involved, and his job was just to get these deals in. And that first hire is absolutely critical. You want to get someone who's not afraid to rip open doors. And then over time, he started building a team. And today there's teams of teams that, you know, in different segments. You've got an SDR outbound team, you've got an inbound team, you got the sales directors, the sales engineers. Like, it's a complete organization, but you definitely go through like 3 of these phases of the founders doing something to a salesperson doing something to having a complete sales organization.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of the methods and tools you used over these times?
Shifted completely. Like in the beginning, you go with everything startup. So we had this outbound tool that was just pinging these emails out to people saying, hey, Matt's coming to Sydney. Can we get some appointments? And it was just sending out to hundreds of customers. And it wasn't great because we weren't very data driven back then. We just throwing out these campaigns. We used Pipedrive, like this great startup CRM. And we had a bunch of these startup tools that we just hacked together with Zapier. And at some point, you just outgrow that, and you're going to end up on your Salesforce or whatever other major CRM, because you have to professionalize and you have to start properly reporting from the moment you do outreach to the moment you close the contract. And you just can't do that on these kind of smaller CRM systems.
Okay. And okay, thanks for the introduction. And I will introduce the second guest we have today, Vlastimil Vodička, the CEO and founder of Leadspicker. Vlasta, you are in a sort of 2 positions here, because first of all, you have your product which you need to sell to your customers, but also basically your your product is about lead generation campaigns. So you are actually helping other, mostly I guess startups, but also other types of clients like VC funds and others to actually generate leads. Vlasta, just to introduce you, was he's currently ex-VC. He worked for JT Ventures, and he was also around Nápad roku, the longest running competition of startups here in Czech Republic. And Leadspicker he founded in 2016. Now he has around 1,000 clients. And under this brand, you can find several sub-brands or products, let's say, which is quite interesting for me, and I would call it like a niche use case product. So if I understand it correctly, you are basically using similar system or methodology, but with several use case for different types of verticals. So could you a little bit tell us about it, how you approached it, and how did you approach the verticals and how?
Sure, of course. Like when you say I'm in sales, like I think every startup founder is in sales. It starts with your wife at home, with your people at the company. So you always, you're always selling, even if you don't realize that. And our journey was a bit different. I started with Leadspicker because it was exactly the thing that I was doing at the work every day, again and again. So I was basically repeating the job, and our first customers were the people who knew me from the previous job. So that's why we built first sort of lead generation system around startups. That's the thing. Like Matt, he mentioned that he was walking to the lobby, pitching to everybody who was listening to him. In my case, it was the same, but we were using already Zoom or Skype, and and we called it Startup Scout because our first couple of hundreds of clients actually were startup accelerators, and but the methodology is more or less the same. So we started firstly with this industry. Then after a couple of years, and in startup you are every year you are building something slightly different. So then when we fundraised our first money, we decided, okay, let's go from this very niche market to something much bigger, to market which is growing faster, which is global, somewhere where people will use us every day, not just a couple of times per year. And now we're building again something slightly different, completely automated. So that's the journey. So
who are your typical clients at the moment?
So most of them
targeting?
Most of them are SMBs, but we also have some large enterprise clients, like Pfizer is a big one. We have Thomson Reuters, we have Singapore Airlines. So we have few big ones, but I would still say like 90% of them are SMBs.
Mm-hmm. So in one of your interviews, you mentioned, and let me quote you on this one, I open my email in the morning, and I have, for example, 8 or 10 confirmed meetings with potential clients. I didn't have to do anything about it, which happens to be a dream of any startup founder, I guess. What's the secret recipe?
So the secret recipe here is that, when people say lead generation, then you usually think about reaching out to people all over the world that just don't know you, and this just doesn't work. Or it could work, but it's a lot of hassle. So the thing that we do is that we firstly focus on the people you are already in touch with, people who know you, people who know your product or your brand. And what we do is that when they move to a new company, like somebody who was your late stage prospect, negotiating a deal with you, but suddenly, they didn't buy, reasons out of his control, budget, time, etc. So then what we do is that when this person that already knows you, or it's your client already, moves to a new company, we use this as a trigger. We find where this person moved to, we find a new email address, and we trigger an automated message with Calendly link. So somebody who knows you from past will most likely to be happy to reconnect with you again. And we can do this completely on autopilot. So really focusing on people that know you or people who are your past clients. That's really important.
At a certain point, you definitely run out of contacts. So where do you go next? Like, where do you source new contacts? Matt, if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, like, so you have to have an inbound program. So you have to build a website that drives traffic, or like new organic traffic that comes in. And that was one of the big shifts that we did initially. I built a website because initially you get the developer to build a website, but it's a waste of their talents. Then, I just got involved and it's like, I'll build my own website on whatever Wix. And then I put a blog on there, and we start writing quite out there blogs, because especially initially you can be David versus Goliath. Our biggest competitor is Oracle, so we just write about how much we hate Oracle and what we're going to change. And at some point you professionalize, you get an entire marketing team involved, digital experts who built the right tech stack. You've got HubSpot, you built the tech stack on top of that, and then you start driving huge amounts of content. And just seeing the shift that we shifted very much towards this about 3 years ago. And right now we outperform anyone in our industry in terms of traffic, organic traffic on our website. And we also do paid traffic, of course, to try and get to those people that don't necessarily naturally come into the website. And that gets people engaged. So, you have ebooks on your website, and the moment they submit their email address, you get a lukewarm lead that you can then pick up with your outbound team to start targeting.
Of course, like putting massive amounts of content out there takes a lot of work. Where do you start?
In English.
And when?
So get a killer CMO involved. Like, that was the one thing. We had done it in a startup way, and at some point you're like, crap, this is just not driving the interest. Like, we were getting 5 or 6 demo requests on the website, and that needs to be 500 a month. So you need to get an expert in. Like, I can Google my way through the internet to figure out how to do that, or you can hire someone who's done that 5 times before, and that's what we did. So we brought in Leah, our CMO, and she's like, right, I need a digital team. I know exactly what I need. Just let me go and do it. And she built that machine. She started tracking. So really build reporting so that you can see the MQLs, the marketing qualified leads, come in at the top of the funnel, them converting to SQLs, and then converting to opportunities and closed contracts. And then you can start to see what is working, what isn't working, and then jump into those.
At what stage of the development of the company you already did this step?
This was
Like
about 3 years ago. So it's a strange time because it was COVID infused, because we had to cut our go-to-market teams completely. Hospitality, so obviously all of our hotels shut down. So we said, let's get one thing right, and it's our brand and our website at the end of this. We want to come out victorious. So we really invested. So at this point we started as 450 employees, and then we cut to 220, but we really invested in marketing in that period of time. So we were about 1,000 customers when we really doubled down on driving marketing inbound.
You mentioned a few times measuring and reporting on your success. I would like to ask Vlastimil here, as an expert, what would you say are the best metrics to use for lead generation? And let's say we forget all of them and you just stick with 3. What would those be?
Like, the best metric are the actual sales, right? So, but if I would pick 3, it's like close deals. Then it's definitely it depends what company you are. So if you are a SaaS company, then sign-ups, and or if you are not a SaaS company, then at least like the meeting rate. So how many meetings you are generating out of those leads, but they need to be relevant. That's also a tricky thing. And then of course the click-through rate. That's more important than just reply rate.
This is what you also measure, or?
Yeah, like the thing is, we measure so much that it's almost too much, and you need to pick which ones are the key ones, and they shift constantly depending on which stage your business is at. So we measure everything from the moment that they hit the funnel, but even pre-funnel. So on the website, are they engaging with the content? How many minutes do they spend on the website? And you just have to understand these metrics, but also pick wisely, because you can all report on 100 metrics, but you can't make them all green. Like, you have to make the important ones green, and that's the one thing that we're still figuring out, which are the critical ones to our business success.
That was my question, obviously.
What are the 3 ones, right?
What are the 3 ones?
Like,
we are not going to let you out so easy.
No, like the MQL to SQL conversion is a really critical one. So do we get people on the website that actually are the right people? So we currently have about a 50% conversion from MQL to SQL, which sounds incredible, but it also shows me that maybe there's something wrong with the metric. Maybe we're letting too many of those leads through to SQL stage, and we've moved from an off the rails kind of solution to actually building our own algorithm, because we're like, it's too complex of an industry, so we need to get an expert in-house who actually looks at those leads and why are they converting into the SQL funnel. So you just have to question the data, and there isn't one data point that I can give you that is unanimous for all businesses. Your business is unique, and you just have to understand your metrics and how they're moving. And it's about the movements being in the right direction.
And we were talking about the content. Which types of content are the best for you, and also for you, Vlasta?
Like one, it's volume and making sure that. So what we do is we look what people search for, and then we build articles. So you go on Google and you figure out what are the search words that get people into our website, and then you build content that uses those words a lot. So it's basic metrics of hospitality that we talk about in our blogs. They're not the most exciting blogs, but apparently those words get people into the website, and hopefully then we capture into the more exciting content that we do. So it's a lot of content that we just generate based on search words in all the different languages. So we're in 70 countries. So we've got to speak all of the languages of the customers and drive content in their own search terms in their own language.
Mm-hmm. To what extent do you use content generation?
So I'm the outbound guy. So we actually use the content that's being created by the target audience, and we use it as a warm introduction or like some icebreaker line. It's really difficult to make it sound, natural, not really something which is a little bit cheap and cheesy. But we basically use it a little bit other way around. So when talking about outbound.
Oftentimes, I open my inbox and I find an irresistible offer from a sales agency for what you could call a sales as a service with guaranteed results, never seen before conversion rates. What is your experience, Matt, with sales outsourcing?
I guess the question can go both ways. It can go to what's my personal experience versus what's the business experience. And personally, I'll block and put those into junk, and I'll make sure that I unsubscribe as fast as I can. But actually, from a business point of view, we do a lot of that. So we have tools that drive these outbound campaigns because they work. And it's and most of the customers are not as educated as I am on the outbound campaigns to recognize them instantly. I immediately see like, oh, congrats on your amazing business, deletes, right? But
you opened.
But our customers, they don't have that education, and it does lock them in. And you have to get really good at personalization. And that's why it works. We have an outbound team of about 15 people now that just go after these lukewarm leads that have engaged with their content but haven't really did a demo request. So we get on the phone and we get to email campaigns, and it really does work.
Is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, definitely. So outbound, it's the easiest and fastest way to generate some initial traffic, but then it needs to work hand in hand with marketing, because most of the people you actually reach out to, they are not ready to buy at the moment. They are in different phase of the buying process. So you need to work with marketing, and you need to keep nurturing those people who are not ready to buy yet. And as I completely agree with you. Like all of the lead generation agencies that promise magic, it's you cannot really hypnotize the customer of yours to buy it. But what a good lead generation agency can help you with is 3 building blocks. One of them is they can help you with the infrastructure you are sending it from. It's very important. There's like a lot of things that can get wrong. Then they should help you with building up the list. So again, reaching the people who are within the hierarchy of the target account, the relevant ones, and sometimes there's a couple of them, or mostly there are a couple of them. And the third thing, which is maybe the most important, to help you with the content of the message and all the follow-ups and the outreach strategy, like how many, how long the subject line should be, how long the message should be, the first message, second message. So many things.
One of the things you mentioned was sourcing contacts and reaching the right people. What is your experience using software like ZoomInfo and Cognism that have plenty of contacts to use?
So I have a lot of experience with that. So we used and we still use a lot of them. So these the tools you mentioned, like ZoomInfo, Rocket Reach, Lucia, all of this. So they are pretty good, but you need to understand one thing. They don't have data which are up to date. So all of them have data which are, if you're lucky, they're like half a year old. And all of them, and we know it because we test all the data, there's a threshold around 10 to 15% of data which are not actual, and these tools they just accepted it, they are okay for them. So I think it's better to get tools like this than just hire some freelancer in India where you don't know what's in it. But it's not, those data are not ready for the campaign at the moment. There's a lot of things you need to do then.
Yeah.
You need to make sure that you're reaching all the people who are still working at the company, and also to make sure that they are actually relevant. And so there's a couple of things. So I would say yes, use them. But then there's a lot of things like cleaning the data. I can recommend like zero bounds to make sure that those emails still exist, and that those emails are actual emails of the recipient, not just catch-all emails. So,
of course.
So there's still work that needs to be done.
What is your experience with that, Matt?
We used to buy a lot of databases, and you get these Indian call centers to create the email, basically figure out the email addresses, and like half of them just don't work, and you pay whatever €2 per lead. So it starts to add up quickly for a database that isn't very relevant. So what we do is rather have inbound work with outbound. So our marketing team drives really smart advertisements on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, you can do really targeted advertisements to the decision maker at a hotel. You target them with really clever hooks that get them to give you their email address. It's inexpensive, like you're paying €10 or something per lead. But these people have now engaged with your content, and then you put the outbound team on it. So you have to really do both of them together, hand in hand. You can't have them work in isolation.
Yeah,
I completely agree.
Good.
So,
And also one thing that people overlook when talking to outbound, and the thing they know in inbound is that if somebody shows the interest, I mean, if they reply or they click, you have really tiny window to get in touch with them. So the mistake that I see very often when somebody's doing outbound is that if somebody replies, I'm like, yeah, tell me more, or interested, or anything which is natural, they respond in a couple of hours or maybe in 2 days, and those leads are just lost. So what you need to make sure is that if somebody replies to your email, then you get in touch with them like right away.
And measure it, right?
And
that's one thing that we started measuring recently, and we could see that it took 24 hours, and it's just unacceptable. These are expensive leads.
So I give you a metric. So in our average campaign, if our client responds to replies in within 50 minutes, we are able to convert 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 to meetings. If they reply in 1 hour or in 2 hours, it's 3 out of 10. And then if they reply the other day, just that lead doesn't even remember you at all. So you need to make sure you respond immediately.
Wow.
Yeah. This is like a game-changing thing, but try it out.
That's quite interesting. Can we maybe, because you told me that your tools, or you actually participated on more than 700 outbound campaigns for your clients with your tools and with your service. So what are the common mistakes, such as this one, which you could pick? And
so I made some notes. So there's a lot of them, but again, I will try to be really short. 3 topics. One of them is the quality of the list. We touch it a little bit. You just need to make sure that there is nobody who will bounce. Those email needs to be, first of all, actual, and those people need to be relevant. I mean, we're talking about outbound prospecting is not spamming all the people around the globe. It's really an approach where you're targeting people who are really on specific working position in the company that are relevant for your business. This is very important. So we touch the content you send. Again, I don't know if you can add some tips at the end of the day, but there are some tools who can help you to check how long the message is. The first message should be between 80 to 300. I would recommend Regi AI, for example, or Copy.ai. So there's a lot of things happening around free GPT-3 to analyze your message. So really make sure the message is between 80 to 300 basically symbols. And this is the first mistake everybody does. They try to include everything. And also the I and U ratio is usually that people are talking about our product, and they don't even mention and personalize why somebody would even reply. And then it's one thing which is underestimated is the infrastructure. people just, use their working email and they send hundreds of emails, and this just doesn't work. So what I recommend to everybody who's listening to this podcast is to create a separate domain. Like we have leadspicker.com, but for outbound, we're using leadspicker.io. Then you need to set up all the, so there's technical setup to set up the DNS setting, a couple of things. And you need to warm up the domain. I mean, a new domain is pretty suspicious if you start sending, 50 emails per day, because, what all those filters see is like there's a 0 and suddenly 50 emails are going out. So there are tools like Limwarm that you can use to warm up the emails. And before you start your outbound campaign, you need to make sure that from this email, you are sending certain amount of emails to emails which will actually reply to you, and with this you are building the reputation. And then once you build a certain level, you can add 10 to 15% every day, and you need to go slowly up. If you for whatever reason you want to reach out to thousands of companies per month, then the only way how this will really work is that you duplicate your domains and you go with a speed 600 per month. Why 600? It's 3 times. So we the number that we know works the best is that if you send 3 times per week, maximum 50 emails, 4 times a month, that's 600. If you do more, then so you need to duplicate those emails and do all the. So this really works. So
I think the hard thing in what you're saying is I'm a founder and I have no patience. And I don't have time to warm things up. So I go gang ho. And I think that's what most founders will want to do. They want to speed up, but you have to build a deliberate strategy that is years in the making. Like our traffic on the website, it's been years of us posting content for us to now outperform anyone in the industry. And it's a hard thing to hear, but it's really important.
Yeah. You both have mentioned that there is a necessary, say, symbiosis in between inbound and outbound efforts. And somewhere on the edge, you would find events. What is your experience with different sizes of events, large industry events versus something that you would self-organize? Let's maybe start with you, Matt.
I noticed you have online seminars, so...
Yeah, we've moved away again from that now into the real world now that COVID is gone, and we are full about, we do about 4 or 5 events a week at the moment. So it's crazy. And it just works really well, especially if you don't have the lead database. It's a really good way to get your brand recognized. So it's a hard one to measure the outcome of. So we now have a marketing person always at the show, making sure that every single person that we interact with is tracked in our CRM. And now we actually track them as MQLs, but we've for 10 years not done that properly. So this is the first year we have real data because we want to know which shows to cut next year because the cost is incredible. But you have to be really creative about these shows. You see a bunch of really corporate, boring booths. Get a creative director in, and you can do this at a budget, right? We've won best stand at a bunch of these shows just by being out there. We did a race track thing. We just dressed ourselves up in race outfits, and we had neon lights, and you couldn't walk past our stand and not recognize us. And it was brand building early on. So we do still believe in trade shows, but it has to be with a digital strategy.
And is it more brand building for you, or is it really like a lead generation?
It's become very big on lead generation, but initially it was brand building. People just didn't know us, and we had to make sure that people trust us. Right? We're the enterprise solution for a hotel, so you've got to be around for a couple of years for people to okay, these guys are going to stick around. But now we see, we've just did a show in Paris, and I think we must have raised 300 MQLs out of that event 2 weeks ago. And it's been the most successful show we've had to date. So it's definitely turning. When people start to recognize your brand, they come to see you and they want to see a demo, and then you've locked them in effectively.
And you said you already went out from the online seminars, like a smaller scale events. Why is that?
Bored of it. People are I don't engage with that content anymore. I think people are just so tired of being on Zoom calls all day, and we're a remote company, so we anyway sit on calls all day, and they're so desperate to get back in touch with people that we've completely ditched that for now.
Okay, thanks.
At the very beginning, you simply cannot afford these large trade shows. How would you start?
like you can do smaller booths. So the first time we did a booth, it was like a 5K booth that we did in Berlin.
Yeah.
And it's just about show up with your whole team, dress them up, like create funky t-shirts, and you don't have to do this at ridiculous budgets. You can hack your way through trade shows and get noticed, and it worked. Like we loved those early trade shows when we just gritty and we just got shit done. And we've definitely now professionalized. Our booths are very different from what we did back then. But we got noticed. People are still talking about what we did in the early days. So you can do it on a budget, but be ready to, like the other day we were in Amsterdam at a trade show and we're like, crap, the guy that was supposed to do the plans hadn't arrived and put the plans in stand. So the founder, Richard, because we're startup guys, like, so he walked into some random office and he's like, can I buy your office plans? And he literally on the way from the airport to the trade show, he bought the office plans and he got those plans to the trade show floor. And it's that mentality, you can still do these things on a budget.
Okay.
What is your experience in Leadspicker?
So this sounds a good plan if you have enough budget, but if you are like most of the startup people, they do the same mistake again and again. They buy a ticket to Web Summit or Slash, and they just show up, and they have no meeting scheduled. They just try to on the spot. They try to reach out some people in the app, and at the end of the day, it's just trip. To Finland or to Lisbon, and they return back with no business. So what I recommend again to all those people is to get your meeting in advance. So all you need to know is the name, surname, and what's the company name of the people in the app, and then you just can find them up on LinkedIn and just make sure, even if you don't have stand, like you still can have 10 meetings or 12 meetings a day. And I believe like events make sense, but to really make sure that you can make most out of it is that you just need to be fully packed with meetings, because that's the point of event. Like you fly to the spot where we can meet all the people at once, because otherwise you would need to travel, all around Europe to meet them face to face, and it's very important to meet people face to face, especially nowadays.
And are these meetings planned for you? I mean, there are plenty of agencies that can organize a meeting with pre-vetted buyers, or is it something you need to do yourself?
I never tried that, so we always do it ourselves.
Yeah, same. So we've never used agencies for that.
Okay, cool. We're approaching the end very, very quickly. So another question before we wrap up is, how is your sales organization structured for success? Because that's, of course, a very, very common question.
So we've split into segments. So we've got an SMB segment and a mid-market segment. So SMB is very metrics driven, inbound driven from the website. So the lead comes in through the website. We pick those up with the sales manager and we convert them really, really fast. I think the mid-market segment is definitely needing a much more complex structure where you have a sales director, you have a sales engineer, you have an outbound person that gets involved with the leads, getting the right leads in, qualifying the right leads, because you don't want to waste your time on a small lead that is just never going to convert in a territory that you don't want to convert in. So really just splitting according to the right customers, picking who you want to talk to and how you want to talk to them. So really sitting down and mapping the whole journey from end to end out has been one of those big lessons for us to figure out how do we improve on them and measure. Like, it's annoying and everyone says it, but you really have to do it and live by the data. Like, you've got to every month look at the data and it's saying, has it moved? Positively so. And if it hasn't, why hasn't it moved? And what did we get wrong? And instantly fix it. Like, you cannot wait around another month and another month for that to just get worse. You've got to jump in instantly.
Yeah.
And if you look a little bit in the past, let's say times when you had 500 customers, how did it look like? Especially the relation between marketing and sales.
There wasn't, like, it was two silos that were working separately, and we never really brought them into the room to work together. And you felt that, like, marketing wasn't targeted on driving leads. They were targeted on having a fun website and just having out there campaigns. But they need to own the number of customers that signed at the end of the month. They should have a quota themselves, a number that they have to hit. And that's been a real shift this year for us, where we're like, marketing was just driving interest. No, you need to own the people that sign at the bottom line. Are they the right customers? And if they're not the right customers, let's go back and actually talk to marketing to drive the right customers into the funnels.
Okay.
This was just the same for us. The biggest shift last year was that we moved from 2 silos, the marketing, the sales team, into basically one group where people are aligned on the same thing. So this is something I really recommend to do.
So you have both shared some very useful insights and practical examples. So thanks for that. But of course, I cannot help myself to ask, what do you consider your biggest fuck up?
In the area of lead generation, of course.
So in our way, when we started, we hired some freelancers in India. And at the beginning, it looks all good. So we when we had enough capacities to check the data, it was like, yeah, they're pretty good. It's cheaper than here. Let's hire them. And then soon we realized that the people you talk with at the beginning are not the same ones that are actually building the list, and they keep changing. So we kind of trusted them. And then the quality changed, and we didn't notice for a lot of months. So I think there was definitely some reputation that was a little bit damaged, but hopefully this was many years ago.
So for us, it was probably not focusing enough and just wanting to do everything. Because it's as founders, you get excited about every shiny object. And when our Leah, our chief marketing officer, came in for our interview, she basically told us that we're crazy what we were doing. She's like, you are asking me to target 10 markets in all of their languages, do local events, do local websites. And she's like, that is not going to work. You've got to pick. And when she started with us, we picked specific territories that were really effective, where the data showed that it was the right territories. They became the A tier, where we threw a lot of money at. You got your B tier, where they get some content and some engagement, and a C tier. And I think that was really critical for us to shift towards the demand gen.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, we could talk about this topic with you apparently the whole day. And thank you very much for your insights. But we are nearing the end of the time we have allocated for the podcast. But before we end, I would like to ask you maybe to sum up and maybe to give a very quick, simple recommendation, but for 2 types of our listeners. For one, who are at the beginning of their business journey, let's say they started the business 1 year ago, and for those who are more advanced. Like in the area of lead generation, from your experience, what would you say is the most important thing? 1, 2, 3.
I'd say the first hire is the most important hire. That first person, you can't think, oh, it's so expensive. If it's the right person, you need to pay that person, because they will set up your strategy, your organization, and it's worth the investments. These are expensive people. Like, they know what they're worth, and they will ask for that. So either have a strong options plan or pay them the salary that they're due. Yeah. But that first hire is probably the most critical hire.
Okay, thanks.
And if you don't have the money to pay them, if you don't have the money to pay them, then ask the people, So I think ask people who know how to do it and listen to them. Because nowadays there is, I think, a lot of support, a lot of experience that can be shared between people. So don't worry and ask if you don't know how to build it. Yeah.
Great.
Okay, well, it was Matt Welle from Mews, CEO of Mews, and it was Vlasta Vodička from Leadspicker today with us in the studio. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
Have a good day.
Have a good day.